Day 3 of Carolina Hurricanes training camp just wrapped up moments ago, and we got to hear from Rod Brind'Amour and Seth Jarvis. Find out what they had to say following day 3 of training camp in this episode of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, Caniacs. I'm your host, Jared Ellis, and you are listening to Locked On Hurricanes on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this episode is once again brought to you by the lovely folks over at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is where you can find your latest scores, podcast, news, and whatever you need for your sports wagering information over at betonline.net, where the game starts. Now, folks, as always, don't forget to follow the show on social media at LO_Hurricanes, Twitter and Instagram, myself, Jared Ellis _96. And most importantly, thank you for making Locked On Hurricanes your first listen of this Saturday morning. We've been talking a lot about training camp as of late. We just had 2 episodes about day 2 of training camp. Also, talking about Calvin DeHaan, what he had to say following day 1. Anniversary patches getting unreleased. It's a busy past couple days, and it keeps coming, folks, because like I said, day 3 just wrapped up, and we got to hear from Seth Jarvis and Rod Brind'Amour following day 3. So first, we will hear from the kid himself, Seth Jarvis.
Which one?
Which one? That one.
Troublemaker.
Did you say he's a very talkative type?
Him?
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't shut up. He's just nonstop talk. When he gets comfortable, it's just talk.
How do you get him to stop?
Interrupt him. I don't know, tell him to shut up. I don't know. I love it. I just let him go on. He's awesome. So I love listening to what he has to say.
Yeah, I was listening to what you told me earlier. Did you say he makes tacos?
Yeah, tacos.
Well, I kept listening. Like, did you say tacos?
Oh, tacos, yeah.
All day. He just said,
Yeah, well, when he
food all day.
he invites me over for dinner sometimes. He'll make specialties tacos. He made me pasta the other night, so he's expanding his range, but tacos is his specialty.
He was actually passing some compliments. We asked him who he thought was the most impressive training camp so far, and he threw your name out there.
I paid him to say that.
You did?
Yeah, so don't listen to a word he says.
How have things gone so far?
Good. Yeah, I feel good out there. I feel like everything's back to where it needs to be. Obviously, shaking off some of the summer habits you get. So I think I've done a pretty good job of getting rid of them. And such as just little things like you turn the puck over in summer, you're not taking those 3 hard strides to get back, or you're trying to force plays. Whereas here, obviously, you force plays, you're not going to be, you might be getting on Roddy's bad side. So, just getting that stuff out and getting back to playing the proper way. And I feel like I've found that, and I'm just excited to get preseason going.
Going back to KK a little bit, too. Is this the year maybe that we see the real thing, the ability that he has?
Oh, yeah.
He's going to have more minutes this year,
Yeah.
more opportunities.
Yeah, he takes a lot of unnecessary slander, I think. I think he is an incredible player and someone that, given the right role and once he gains his level of confidence, I think in that role, I think he'll flourish. I think he's got all the tools. He's got a wicked shot, sees the ice well. His skating's improved. He's big. He's strong. So I mean, what more could you really ask for? So I think this year in an expanded role, I think he'll do really well.
Your season kind of ended, more abruptly than you would have thought. How did that rehab kind of go for you after that big hit?
Not great. I was here for probably a week and a half or 2 weeks extra, just going to doctors every day and people checking up on me and stuff. And then I went home, took maybe a couple of days off, and I was like, okay, I want to go back to the gym, just see how I feel. I went in the gym, the music was going I walked in there, I was like, I can't be in here, just the music was too loud. So I had to take another probably week and a bit off of just So like I'd go for like walks, or like I had a stationary bike, so I'd stationary bike a little bit and just in complete silence, just because the music and stuff kind of hurt my head. And then finally I was able to make it way back in the gym. And honestly, right when I got back in there and I was comfortable with kind of the setting, like the music, everyone around, loud weights, stuff like that, I was able to kind of get into lifting and stuff right away. And once I got probably a week of that and got comfortable and feel like, okay, I'm back, I'm ready to go, it was smooth sailing from there on.
Feel good now though?
Yeah, feel great. Feel ready to go.
You made that Invisalign visit yet or not?
Oh, but I wish. There's more than there's. We had the orthopedic checkup. There's a bunch of stuff going on up there that I didn't even know. So I don't know what they're gonna do. Hopefully it gets straightened out. Yeah,
feature, right?
maybe this is just it. Maybe this is my thing. But yeah, hopefully I'll get straight teeth one of these days. Awesome. Thank you guys. Thanks, Ed.
Yeah, so obviously Seth Jarvis, yeah, funny guy, funny kid, and a lot of good things to say about Jesper Kotkaniemi. If you remember, in a previous episode, when we heard from him, following day 2 of training camp, he was saying, he's expecting big things from Seth Jarvis this year, and yeah, Jarvis joked around that he paid him to say that, and stuff like that. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know, and nor do I really care if he did or not, because I think we all are expecting big things of Seth Jarvis and Jesper Kotkaniemi as well. We talked about that in previous episodes as well of him, stepping up, having that bigger role, getting comfortable in it, making up ground in his development and getting comfortable. And I agree wholeheartedly that we're going to see, really good year from him. And, with Seth Jarvis, obviously he's talking about, breaking summer habits and stuff like that. That's stuff you expect, regardless of the sport, whether it's hockey, basketball, football, whatever. As soon as training camp starts, you're going to be expecting, some of those bad habits to start rearing their ugly heads. And I think, as their careers progress, a guy like Seth Jarvis, Spirit Kotkaniemi, these younger guys, whenever they get older and they find themselves in you know Sebastian Aho, he's been around for a while. Rod Brind'Amour said yesterday he's a veteran player, and then you look even older, Jordan Stahl, Brent Burns, Paul Stastny, those guys, they've really been around. I really think they won't have to worry about some of those bad habits. They'll be better about it. Seth Jarvis, 20 years old, Andrei Svechnikov, while we haven't heard from him, as far as that stuff, 21 years old, these guys in their early 20s, as time goes on, I feel they'll break those habits, and, very thing I found very interesting in what he had to say today was talking about his rehab, having dealt with concussions myself in the past. It can be a pain. It really can be a pain, trying to come back from those, and how he was here, late, or past, when everyone else left. And then, that when he went home and then like tried to go to the gym and everything was just too loud. Like, I get that. I've been there. It ain't fun. And just how he dealt with his rehabbing of it maybe not going the way he planned. That was very interesting. Obviously, he's fine now. But it is very it's just one of those things, the curtain gets peeled back a little bit, and you hear about, okay, this rehab, didn't go as well as, he had maybe initially expected. Again, it's obviously, very young, maybe I don't know if he's, dealt with stuff like that in the past. But it's always very interesting to see again when that curtain gets peeled back and you're like, oh, this he didn't really have a good rehab. That was and and again, I appreciate his honesty. You talked about that, with Ryan Dzingel, following day 1, he is very honest and he didn't sugarcoat things. And and then Calvin DeHaan as well, while we didn't hear from him, read what he had to say. Again, just very honest in what they're having to say. And I do greatly appreciate that they're not just giving us the run of the mill type stuff and stuff you expect to hear and stuff like that. I really appreciate that. I really, really do. And I think that, as something like that, especially from a guy like Seth Jarvis, younger than me, younger than probably a lot of you guys listening, and the fact that he can be that open, honest in his career now, 10 years from now, you know, the type of, player and off ice presence, he's going to be, I think, yeah, while it may seem very, very unimportant or whatever, it's just talking about his rehab from summer, but yeah, he's so young right now and he's, carrying himself, that way and being honest and, like, yeah, it didn't go the way I wanted it to. Yeah, I appreciate that. I really, really do. And you talk about veterans and whatnot. Seth Jarvis, obviously, complete opposite end of it, entering his second season, not even 21 years old. Rod Brind'Amour, veteran of the game, a Jack Adams winning head coach, and we all know his accolades. We also got to hear from him this afternoon or this morning, rather. But this is what we had to hear from Rod Brind'Amour following day 3 of Carolina Hurricanes training camp.
You like the way everything's kind of sliding into place in the first 3 days, or just?
I mean, it's training camp. You're trying to just get everything in, introduce every little thing. That's the way the schedule is set up. It's kind of nice because we do have 5 or 6 practices before we actually play a game. So you can kind of introduce everything, and then you get the game, and then you start working off the games that you play, and go from there. So it's been going fine.
You've seen Dylan a little bit now, in person. What are your first thoughts on him?
Yeah, it looks fine. I mean, it looks good. It's again, I don't make any assessment in watching practice. It's just like, let's see what this is about, them getting the understanding how we want to play, and then go play. But I mean, if you're asking me what I see in practice, everybody looks good.
I'm assuming this group is a little easier to show them what you want to do than the second
yeah.
group.
The other one is a little tougher. A lot of it, mostly because there's a lot of guys in there that don't speak English, so that's a huge, when you're doing systems, number one, and then you try to explain it, that makes it harder, and new concepts, new drills. They're just, it's a little tougher, but that's part of it.
Do you have an interpreter?
Well, we usually have a few guys that can help out. We're lucky in that, for the Russians, we have the Panorama speaks English, so he's helpful. But it doesn't really help at the time, I mean, he gets to them later, but it is what it is.
And then things can change, especially with your lines and everything. But are you kind of looking at Stastny as taking that Nino spot, or?
Maybe. I mean, that's an option. I mean, I know he can play center, so I don't need to see him at center. Mm-hmm. So just kind of just see if that's a good fit. If not, we got other good options too. So it'll change as we move along.
I know you like to, use right-handed, left-handed guys and be able to switch them out on face-offs. Maybe not as many options this year.
Yeah, we potentially don't have if we end up using Stastny at center, then we probably wouldn't have a right-handed option. But I mean, we have Stepper here. That's all going to work itself out. And we got other guys that we can use to take face-offs that just aren't centermen. So I'm not as concerned with that.
Do you see Natchez and Jarvis doing that?
That's what I'm saying. Those guys can play center if we had to, or take face-offs. So that'll all take care of itself once we get moving along.
All right. Thanks, Rod.
Yeah, so today, not as much to hear from, as opposed to yesterday when there's a lot to dissect following, what Rod had to say. But, still some really good things, to hear from Rod today. He's finally getting a chance to see Dylan Coghlan play. He looks good. One thing I do think is always very important is that everyone's going to look good in practice. You can't really make any true assessments right now until you see these guys get out and play a game. And then, as Rod said, then you can start to build off of those games and teach off of those games. I think that is going to be really important. Again, like you said, everyone looks good in practice. One thing we talked about, in previous episode was how the groups are divided up. The first group is mostly veterans, so that's a easier group. They can pick things up a bit better, and they understand the concepts and whatnot, especially in that first group. A lot of guys that were already on the team and literally know those concepts and whatnot. Already knowing that stuff. And then the second group, while he did say yesterday that they're picking things up really well and whatnot. The thing he did mention is a lot of those guys don't speak English, and that can be a challenge for them. And that's something that I think, coaches, don't necessarily get enough credit for, in that, some of these guys don't speak English. Obviously Rod Brind'Amour, of course, he's the coach, we're talking about right now, but coaches, across the league in other leagues as well, kind of, uh, finding that and, getting that interpreter out there and helping things, with that. I think that's something that a lot of coaches don't necessarily get enough credit for, but ultimately, we just kinda gotta wait and see. Again, everyone looks good in practice, and, gotta wait for that game. Thing, that Rod mentioned was that they have, like, several practices before they play a game, and I think that'll be very beneficial to everyone. The veterans shaking off, summer rust, young guys also summer rust, as well as having time to learn these concepts, learn these plays, learn what Rod is expecting from them. I think that is I think that's gonna be an underrated, thing that is going to be helping all of these guys that make the team, guys that don't make the team, all of it. I think that's really gonna help them in this preseason, and I like that. I believe it was Chip Alexander, asked him, could we see Paul Stastny slotting into that Nino role? And I think that's something that a lot of folks, kind of thought, we'd be expecting. Rod, said that, we very well could see that. We maybe could see him because, we don't necessarily see him. We know he can play center. That's not something we're worried or he's worried about, and, you know, you have, guys that can you know, also, take, that take those face-offs, like Derek Stepan, he's back. He's a guy, I do think, we could potentially see him getting a contract, like Calvin DeHaan. I really do think, those two guys will get themselves contracts, as well as Seth Jarvis, Martin Necas, guys that, not necessarily center, but can, take face-offs. I think, they're well-rounded in that regard. And another thing, as he mentioned, things can change as time goes on because you do have those other guys there that could potentially be slotting into that role. But again, it's just something that we're just gonna have to wait and see, And there's a lot of training camp left. There's preseason, and roster cuts are gonna be happening before we know it, and we'll just have to wait and see, what happens. And I do think that again, you can't really make a real assessment at practice because again, everyone is going to look good in practice for the most part. Probably some bad summer habits, like Seth Jarvis mentioned. Shaking those things off, but aside from those, be it, everyone's gonna look good, and I think that we're gonna get our real first look at what we're going to be working with, come first preseason game. I think it's Monday. Is it Monday, guys? It's the first preseason game Monday, or is it Tuesday? It's next week. That I know for a fact. I know it is next week. So let's see. We are Tuesday. It's Tuesday the 27th is the Hurricanes' first preseason game. It is against the Tampa Bay Lightning. So again, we still got several days, and practices uh thing before we can really get our first. Like, I don't know if we'll have any roster cuts between now and then. I don't know. Maybe we will. Maybe we won't. I'm not 100% sure. But ultimately, you know, I'm liking what I'm hearing from Seth Jarvis. He's, again, he's very honest with us as far as, what he had to say, as far as his rehab. I do really appreciate that. I think, again, while it may seem very small right now, I think, something like that, something as small as that can really, I think it's going to bode well for his career of the way his honesty and whatnot, and that's just with the media. Think about, in the locker room, like, hey, we didn't, you know, maybe call out, like, some bad plays or whatnot. I appreciate something like that. I think that'll be good for him. And then, of course, Rod Brind'Amour, he's said it, several times. You can't really make a real assessment right now as far as, you know, what, who's good, who's bad, who's going to make the team, who's not going to make the team. He said it, following yesterday that nobody has made the team and nobody has not made the team. And yeah, again, before we know it, those roster cuts will be happening, and I'm very excited to see just how things will shake out. The stats need debate. A lot of people, slotting him in there, but maybe things change up. I don't know. That's just something we're gonna have to wait and see as time goes on. But in the meantime, make sure you are following Locked On Hurricanes on Twitter and Instagram at LO_Hurricanes. Myself on Twitter at Jared Ellis _96. And I will talk to you guys in the next episode.